Well, it's a late decision to come out to Lound Wood at Eakring and get a few hours moth trapping in. I wasn't going to go anywhere, and then I decided, almost at the point of darkness, of which we're at now, that I will indeed come out and give it a couple of hours, see what turns up. You never know. Sometimes these last minute decisions pay off. Time to get set up before it gets dark. Well, a very late start to this trapping session. The first moth, as you might have just seen, is already in. 22:15 is the start time, and it's the 22nd of July, and warm too. A decent temperature. It was 17 degrees centigrade on the way here, so we should get one or two moths. So let's see what happens. Well, quite a steady and somewhat sedate start to this session. I'm sure that it will get quite busy as the sky continues to darken. It's about 50-50 split between macro species and micro species. Nothing out of the ordinary yet, but we do have both lesser broad-bordered yellow undoing and broad-bordered yellow undoing, the latter species being a bigger thug than the first. But very attractive moths, both of them, and although they're common, they're less common than large yellow undoing. And there is a lesser yellow undoing in too, just to confuse everything. Yellow shell, not had many yellow shells this year that I can remember. That is in. And if we look at the micros, then Spilinota ocellana is in. Here's a moth that don't get very often, although it is regular here in the grassy areas around Lound Wood and Red Hill, and it's Alcystogramma rufescens, which is quite an attractive moth. Just brown, but it's not a species that I trap a lot of. And so we'll see what gradually works its way in to the sheet here. I'm sure there will be something of interest amongst tonight's catch. Well, here's a moth that I was hoping to show you last year when the first record of least carpet turned up at this very spot. But the moth disappeared and I was unable to show the moth in the flesh. And so here is Eakring's second record of least carpet. Smart little moths. They're only small, maybe little more than 15 millimeters the wingspan length, but what an attractive little species this is. The wings on this one seem more clouded and marked with grey than the one I remember from last year, but what a little beauty. People have been catching good numbers of these of late here in Nottinghamshire, and so it's nice to get in on the act. So that's least carpet. I'd forgotten that one of these could turn up. But it's 1:45, so an hour and a half gone of this session already, and it is a quiet session. We're on to about 45 species, so not too bad. Small mottled willow has just arrived, and it's a very poor specimen. A lot seem to be at the moment, but there's not been a great deal of interest that have come in. As of yet, of course, that could all change. This is a most unpredictable hobby. So we'll wait and see what does come in. It's coming up to a bit of a walk around and a cup of tea time, I think. And the temperature is still 17 centigrade. I thought it might be a little bit lower. There's just the most gentle of breezes, and hopefully that gentle breeze might bring something in, but very quiet. What has come in the last few minutes or so, small blood vein, is, I don't think new for the year, but nice to see one. But it was quite faded too, so it wasn't a particularly fresh looking individual. As a small mottled willow I've mentioned, dusky thorn, which also turned up at Missing Car last night, scarce footman, and not much else, to be honest. Nothing is standing out in the notebook. On the micro front, we have had Plutella xylostella, which is the diamondback moth. So a couple of migrant species have arrived, and just see if there's anything else. No, there isn't. I say very quiet but enjoyable, and to be honest, I didn't want a particularly hectic session. I don't normally trap on consecutive nights, but with the conditions being as they are, I thought it's worth going out and having a couple of hours. Tomorrow will be a day at home, because I need to sort out some videos for this channel. Now here's an attractive species which I can talk about, because the farm machinery that are harvesting at the moment has moved away from Lound Wood. But this is an Arnia coronata, and it's a species of pyralid moth which will soon turn up in your garden. It's quite a common species, only usually found at the light in small numbers, but attractively marked. It has a metallic element to it, and to be honest, there's very little like it. Certainly in Nottinghamshire, there's nothing that this can be mistaken for, really. So that's an Arnia coronata, and we've been lucky in that it's stayed with us, because they don't tend to linger on the sheet very long. Here's another chance to have a look at black arches. What a thing. Really does look as though someone's scribbled over white paper with black ink and created a most spectacular moth. This also marks the place where Dillis and I recorded the first black arches in Nottinghamshire for many years, and all of a sudden, and very quickly too, it became common, and very soon was found in most deciduous woodlands. We turned up a lot in the Sherwood Forest area. Amazing how the status of a species can change within a matter of a few years. And there's two of these somewhere. The other one I think is on the other side of the light. Well, here's another very attractive moth which often doesn't hang around to be photographed, and this is a yellow shell. They can be quite variable, sometimes to the point where some of the darker marked ones don't make you think yellow shell straight away. But when you look at the markings, and that the markings are all in the same place as your average yellow shell, then you realise that you've almost been conned into thinking that you've got a new species. A beautifully attractive moth. Another species which is very common. The caterpillars are often quite commonly found, and they have a quite unusual resting posture. If you breed them through, they inevitably turn out to be yellow shell. So nice to get a view of one. I'm sure it's not going to last much longer, but nice to be able to see one all the same. And there are now two of these around the light. So that's yellow shell, very attractively marked moth. There's a few more moths starting to come in. No big numbers of anything, but still a nice session. Sometimes these sessions during the peak of the mothing season, so to speak, can be overwhelming, and it's funny because you long for good numbers during the winter and the early spring, and then when you get good numbers you long for a quiet night occasionally. But apparently some more warmth is on the way. Now here's a very attractive moth, and when I put the photo in you'll see that it's better than it looks here. This is a dusky sallow, and it's a relatively common moth in grassy areas, and it's a species which sometimes you can see during the day nectaring on the flowers of the likes of knapweed and creeping thistle. But it's beautifully marked. It's just a shame that this shot here under MV light doesn't do this moth justice, because it is an absolute stonker. Always nice to get, usually occurs in small numbers here, but very nice to see, and very nice that one settle down. They don't always settle down in an accessible place. So that's dusky sallow. Keep an eye out for it during the day next time you're walking around the edges of a grassy field. As you can see, I am taking this moth trapping malarkey at a sedate pace. And as I've said before, I enjoy doing this. Surprising sometimes how late in the session certain moths appear. That was the first mother of pearl that I've written down, Patania ruralis, which had a name change a couple of years ago. Just when you get used to calling them something, a taxonomist comes along and changes it all. Dunbar is new to the list for this evening, and that's a very attractive moth, very variable, comes in a range of colours, but it's not done so well. But like many species, it had its year a few years ago. I think Dillis and I were trapping here and we used to get good numbers, but it seems to have died out a little bit, or the numbers have declined, is a more accurate way of putting it. Something which happens with most species. They will have a year or a couple of years of abundance or relative abundance, and then sometimes pretty much disappear off the face of the earth. Funny how it happens. No 2 years are really ever the same. 1 or 2 species always have a particularly good year. I need to make a move. Only as far as the flask, mind. As I've said sometime during the course of this video, it's a quiet session. But you still have constantly keep an eye out. Sometimes it's just better lying down in this position. And now we're after midnight, there's the chance of some different species coming in that haven't appeared so far this evening. So, cup of tea time it is. Well, it's just coming up to 1:45, and I think that'll do for this evening. It's been a nice enough session, a quiet session, but I don't mind that. See, sometimes it makes a change and a break to have a quieter session, and if we are going to get some warmer nights, then presumably the moth numbers will rise likewise, similar to the temperature. So a slow and steady pack up of everything it is, and then we head for home.